Speaking of lawsuits, this is one that's been going on for not decades, I don't want to say decades, but a long, long time. Young Buck and 50 Cent's whole battle about 50 says he's owed $250,000. Buck says he doesn't owe it. We thought he paid it at one point. I don't know what's going on. Let's go over the article. Young Buck and 50 Cent are again engaged in a legal squabble over the $250,000 Buck allegedly owes his former collaborator and label boss. The dispute has been going on for a decade and relates to Buck's prior contract with G-Unit Records, with the label insistent it paid him $250,000. Buck, on the other hand, claims he never received the money. 50 filed a claim against the $250,000 during Young Buck's lengthy bankruptcy ordeal. And it was thought that the matter was settled when the Shorty Wanna Ride rapper reportedly paid off his debts after selling the rights to his music. We reported on that, and we genuinely thought, hey, this guy paid everything. That's what was, written out based off all the news articles. Buck never really spoke on the situation. He just said, I didn't sell a lot of the stuff that they were saying. But he says, you know what? It is what it is. According to All Hip Hop, however, Buck and his legal team are now claiming that there is no proof he received $250,000, citing a lack of accounting records. And here's the funny thing. G-Unit also acknowledges they do not have the documents to support their claim to the money. Buck's filing urges the judge to dismiss G-Unit's claim to $250,000. I personally think, especially if G-Unit doesn't have the documents to say that they actually gave Buck $250,000, I think 50 is just trolling Buck and basically trying to make his situation as worse as possible. Because there has to be more to this story behind the scenes that we don't know as to why 50 is doing this to Buck. Why did he never do this to Yayo? Why did he never do this to Banks? Why did he never do this to Rotimi? Why did he never do this to Hot Rod? Why did he never do this to Leah, who at one point was signed or Gino Records? Why did he never do this to Kid Kid? Why did he never do this to Precious Paris that was signed? All these artists that 50 signed. DJ Pauly D at one point was signed to G-Unit Records. You never hear, you did hear Rotimi talked about this, who was Dre in the show Power when he was signed to G-Unit at one point. He did say that, hey, I owed 50 money. And then 50 said, hey, just, you're free to go. You can pay me off the music that you make in the future, and you can give me, whatever royalties, whatever you want to call it off that. And eventually he paid 50 off. But 50 just doesn't seem like the guy that would, based off history, right? Like Mobb Deep at one point was signed to G-Unit, and they themselves, Prodigy and Havoc, said, we were paid handsomely. We were overpaid, they felt like. We were paid astronomical things, and we weren't delivering the numbers based off of what we were getting paid. And then 50 let us go, and he had no issues. He didn't contractually, because he could. When you're signed to somebody, you do have an obligation to fill your contract. And I'm sure it's not just a one-album deal. I'm sure when he signed Mobb Deep, they were supposed to do like a 4-album. Usually the standard is like a 3-4 album deal, right? Unless you're just a new artist and they screw you and they do a 10-album deal and just screw your whole career, right? So the history suggests that 50 has never, forced people into contracts and has, put a strangle on them. The only time is this Buck situation. So clearly there is something deeper. I don't know if it's on 50's end, Buck's end, or both, where 50 is just strangling Buck for whatever he can. 50, after this, dispute made headlines, 50 posted a clip of where Buck went on Steve-O's podcast, and Steve-O Buck was saying, hey, 50 paid my taxes. I eventually had to pay him back. It wasn't like he just gave me money. Because, people, I think, in the perception, I guess, on the internet, and I can kind of see how people would think like this. People think that 50 just paid Buck's taxes and never asked for his money back. No. 50 paid Buck's taxes, his situation he was having, the problem he was having, and then eventually he had to pay Buck back. Buck had to pay 50 back, which is reasonable. And then Steve-O kind of interjects and says, that's still a nice thing to do, He didn't have to pay your taxes. He could have just let you deal with that situation and have issues yourself. And then Buck was like, yeah, it was, it's a great, I appreciate it for that, blah, blah, blah. So 50 posted that clip, and the caption, he said, Somehow he still managed to be ungrateful. I helped him with his taxes. We didn't have a problem till he didn't know how to accept he's gay. Got caught with a tranny and got mad at me. SMH boy, I didn't know you mess with boys. What the fuck? You should have signed to Bad Boy, a.k.a. Diddy. So he takes a jab at Diddy and trolls Buck. Here's the thing, and I've always said this. I think 50, when he attacks Buck, and Banks especially, because Banks has only shown respect to 50, it's very corny. I hate it. I can't stand it. I think 50 should just leave the situation alone. I don't know if 50 actually paid Buck $250,000 and Buck, I don't know. I don't know that situation, but if 50 gave Buck $250,000, Buck should return that money and just be done with it. It is what it is. I don't know that situation. I don't know what's going on there. I don't know their backstory deep like that. Nobody does because we're not in the internet. I know a lot of information based on their history, probably the best out of everybody. I know exactly when this beef started, like the moment. I know the article of when it started. But, this situation, we don't know the full backstory. 50's never really gone deep into it. Buck's never really gone deep into it. Buck is kind of pretty much said, hey, I don't know why he's treating me like this. I have no idea. So maybe it's on 50's end. But 50, when he attacks Buck and he attacks Banks, which he does sometimes, he'd be attacking Banks sometimes, which I don't like. And I like that Banks ignores it, doesn't really care. Shout out to him. I think it's corny, man. You're like, these guys were your brothers at one point. Buck explained the whole, situation with that person that he got caught with sleeping, that tranny, whatever the situation was. And, I think he was genuinely telling the truth. He just didn't know and blah, blah, blah. And people like to troll him and attack him on that. I think it's corny as well. Even if, if Buck came out and said, hey, I like to swing both ways, I wouldn't care. It doesn't change my opinion of him. It doesn't do anything. I could care less. If the music is still dope, I'm still going to listen. I don't care what your private life is like sexually. I could give two fucks about that. That's got nothing to do with me. What you do in your bed, I don't know why people are so concerned about this stuff when it comes to rappers, and who cares what these people do in their own beds? As long as it's consenting adults, do whatever the hell you like to do, man. As long as everybody consents. Not like Diddy, where people weren't consenting and people were getting locked up and R. Kelly was doing all kinds of crazy stuff. And not that. I'm saying if there's consenting adults and they do something in their bedroom and they like to do that, that's on them. Like, why do people care so much about that stuff? It makes no sense to me. 50, of course, he's a troll, so he's going to troll Buck on these situations. Always has trolled him. But I think it's corny. I disagree with it. I think Fifth, just whatever the situation is, I would love to interview 50 and be like, hey, why, where's the court documents? I would actually, ask about these questions, but people don't ask. I don't understand. These interviews, it's like people just don't know or they just don't want to ask. I don't know. But we'll keep eyes posted, man. I don't think this is something that's never going to be settled anymore. They got things together again. 50's kind of just over it after the G-Unit 2.0 kind of run that they tried to do. Didn't really work out that well, unfortunately. I really love the two EPs they dropped, The Beauty of Independence and The Beast is Unit. Amazing projects. All those freestyles they came out with. I felt like they were on a roll, but all of a sudden just kind of the wheels fall off. And, it's unfortunate, man. I was really, really excited. I thought they could have done something really good. But yeah, 50's way, way past the whole G-Unit days and all that stuff. Trying to recreate that and do that over makes no sense. Even for me as a hardcore fan, it's not what it once was. What I would like is for them to be cool to go on tour. I would love a G-Unit tour. I would love to go to that, but that's likely never going to happen. I don't see Banks and 50 talking again. I just don't. I'm not saying ever. Maybe they might be cordial and they might have you might see them, in person again. But I don't think, they're going to sit there and be like, oh, we're friends and we're going to be buddy-buddy and you're going to be hanging out with us like that again. No. But yeah, we'll keep our eyes posted on this, and it's unfortunate, man. All this stuff is happening.